Good evening, this is Tom. I'm filling in for Derrick this evening. Tonight, we're going to be taking a simple ceiling light. It's just a little porcelain fixture with a single light bulb in it, and we're going to be replacing it. We're going to be replacing it with a nice 5-blade ceiling fan. So we're going to go step by step with you through this and show you how it's done. So you can take a plain, ordinary light and turn it into a really nice, decorative, cooling ceiling fan. So as you can see, I've already unboxed everything. And this is what's going to come in your box, as well as the tools that you'll need to do this installation. Now, this is assuming that you already have a suitable fixture in place in your ceiling to mount this from. That's very important. You need to make sure that you do that. This doesn't weigh a lot. I think the whole thing maybe weighs like 15 pounds or so with the motor, but you need to make sure you have something that can bear that much weight. As you can see, we have the user installation and care guide. We've got the limited warranty. These are the blades for the fan. This is your glass shade that will go over and diffuse your light. This, I'm not sure what the technical name for it is, but this is what goes over the motor. It's just the motor housing that covers it up so that you're not looking at this. You're looking at, something nice and decorative. This is the ceiling mount. So this is what's actually going to be screwed up to your ceiling, and this is going to hold the rest of everything. You've got your light fixture here, which will be wired up to the bottom of the motor. These are the arm assemblies that will screw into the bottom of the motor and then have the blades attached to it. We've got some wire nuts here. We've got some little decorative chains that will go on the end of the chains that are already installed on the light fixture and the motor. And then we've got the tools needed. Now, for some reason, the instructions say that you just need some wire strippers, which we don't need, electrical tape, which we also don't need, a flathead screwdriver, and a Phillips head screwdriver. Well, I've gone through everything. There's no flathead screws, so you don't need that. But they don't tell you that you need a 7/16" wrench. So this is the ceiling mount, which the motor is going to get mounted to. And as you can see, it's got these 4 nuts with washers on them. It's a 7/16" nut. I don't know how they were planning on you taking these off and putting them back on to mount the motor without a wrench. But just so you know, if you do get this or pretty much any other Hampton Bay ceiling fan, you're going to need that 7/16" wrench to do that. And this particular model has LED bulbs, and it did come with the 2 60-watt replacement LED bulbs. So that's pretty much everything that's in the box and everything you're going to need to install it. So let's get going. So the very first thing you want to do is make sure that your power is shut off. You can do this a couple of ways. One is just turning the light switch off, and that should technically suffice, but then you run the risk of somebody walking in, turning the light on, you get zapped, right? So I actually shut my breaker off down in the basement, so there's no power coming to this. So then we're going to disconnect the existing light fixture. Very simple, just a couple of screws. If you can see that. And that just pops off there. There's also screws that hold this up into the ceiling, but I had already taken those out previously, and that's a kind of another story. And then you want to straighten these out. It's easier to do it with a pair of pliers, but I just use my fingers and it's fine. So you see we've got the 3 wires up here. If you're not familiar with electricity, you typically will have a black, a white, and a green or a bare. This is your ground wire. The black wire is your hot wire, and the white wire is your neutral. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount your mounting bracket to the ceiling. You see we've got this hole in the center here. That's where our wires from our junction box are going to feed through. And then you've got a couple of sets of holes here, depending on what type of junction box you're going up to, that your screws will actually go through to mount it to the ceiling. So let's get started with that. Now once you get your wires through, you can just kind of twist this until you get it lined up with the holes in your junction box. And then carefully, one at a time, get your screws started. Try not to drop them. And once you get them started, you can let that hang. Get your small Phillips head screwdriver, hold this up against the ceiling, and then just tighten your screws. Now you can use a cordless drill for this if you want. It's not strictly suggested though, because you are screwing into usually a plastic junction box. So if you torque down too tight on that drill, you can pretty easily strip or just break the junction box. Now with this particular junction box, there's actually 2 sets of screw holes. So if I destroyed one, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you were going into a junction box that only had a single set of screw holes and you destroyed one, you'd kind of be hosed, and at that point you'd be looking at replacing the junction box, which is a whole other video that I hope never to make. So you want to get these snug. You don't need to torque down too tight, but as you can see, I'm wrenching on that pretty well now and it's not moving. So we'll give it another couple twists and we're good to go. All right, so the next thing we're going to be doing is mounting our motor. And if you notice, when we were in our junction box, we've only got 3 wires, a black, a white, and a bare, or like I said, it could be green, okay? Now here, coming off our motor, we've got 4 wires. Well, that's because you've technically got 2 different things going on. You've got the fan, and you've also got the light assembly. So if you were so inclined, if you had 2 switches available, or if this was a new construction and this is the way you wanted to do it, you could actually wire this to 2 separate switches. So you have one switch which controls the fan and another switch which controls the light. We're not going to be doing that. So for our purposes, what we're going to do is we're actually going to twist the black and the blue together and wire those together with the black once we get up there. The other thing you'll notice, now this used to be the hardest part of doing this because you had to hold the motor in place while you were wiring these together and then bolt everything up, and it was kind of a pain in the rear. Now if you notice on here, you have this slot. I'll show you when I get back up the ladder, but there's a corresponding hook on the ceiling mount. So you're actually, what we're going to do is we're just going to hook this on that hook and it'll hang there freely. You can let go of it so then you can do your electrical work and not worry about this thing falling down. So let's get back up the ladder and get this motor mounted. Okay, so like I said, first thing, we've got the hook right here. Okay, it's only on one side. And we just take this, slide it over that notch, and now we can let go of this. Our hands are free to do our electrical work. So as you can see, there's also a ground wire coming directly off the mount here. So all we have to do to connect these wires, we'll take our new wires, and like the wiring in this house is solid copper, it's not braided. So all you have to do is really just kind of twist that around the end there. You take your wire nut and you screw it on the end. And then it grabs everything. And if you see, while I'm twisting that now, it's actually twisting the wires because that's all locked in together. So once you do that, you want to kind of independently give your wires a little tug just to make sure that they don't pop out of it. But it's as easy as that. You just do your greens to your bare or your green, whatever you have in your house. Then we're going to put our whites together the same way. Just take our new braided wire and twist it around the end. Put our wire nut on. Screw that together until you feel it really bite in there and start twisting those wires. Give both of them a tug, make sure they don't come out. And we'll rinse and repeat with our blue and black wire that's going to go to our existing black wire. Now, I could and probably should actually trim a little bit of the bare off of these black and white wires that are existing, but I think it will be all right. So now we've got all those put together. We can take everything, fold it, tuck it up in here. And then we can finish mounting our motor, which is going to consist of putting these 4 nuts on. Now this can get kind of tricky trying to get these wires out of the way. Don't be afraid to force them. You just don't want to pinch them. There we go. Now this can get a little funky because you're trying to hold this in place, plus put one of these nuts on with a washer. But with a little bit of ingenuity, you get it up there, and you can move on to your next one. So we're just going to get these on here finger tight for now. And then we'll come back with our wrench and tighten everything up. So there we go. We've got 2 in place diagonal from one another. So now this won't go anywhere. We can let go of it. We're going to look at our wires again up here. You might have a hard time seeing that, but we don't want to make sure that nothing's pinched. And then we can stuff those up there. And all of this will be hidden by that metal dome or shade that I showed you earlier. So we're not too terribly worried about some wires maybe sticking out a little bit there. So we're just going to use a standard 7/16 wrench. We're going to give these a tighten. Now these don't have to be cranked down. There's actually rubber bushings up in here. So this will stay tight. These are Loctite nuts. So there's actually, or nylock nuts. So there's actually a nylon lining inside the thread of the nuts that'll keep this from coming unthreaded. So we don't need to crank down on these super hard. Just get it nice and snug. So you'll notice when you're tightening these down, so you've got 2 on this side, 2 on this side. As I tighten one of these down and it actually starts compressing these, the one on the corresponding one on that same side will end up looser. So you want to get one to a point where it's nice and snug, and then you just kind of want to match it with the other one and make sure that they're about the same tightness. But I think we're good with this. So I'm going to climb down, get some more parts, and we'll move on to the next step. So next thing we're going to mount is this motor covering, whatever they call this. It's a dome, metal dome. So as you can see in here, we've got these 4 notched areas. And if you look up here, we've got these 4 pegs coming out of our ceiling mount. So all we're going to do is we're going to press this up and line it up, and we just have to twist it clockwise and it'll lock into place. There we go. So that's that. Let's go put some arms and blades together real quick. So next we're going to put our blades together with our arms. Now something that they've been doing recently, some of these manufacturers, especially Hampton Bay, instead of actually having screws here where you have to screw it in, you've got this like spring lock assembly. And I'll show you how that goes together in a second. But another thing they've been doing, and you'll have to look at the specific ceiling fan, but they do these reversible blades. So you can see, I hope it comes up on the camera, but you can see how this side is a lighter wood color. And this is more of a, I think they call it ebony walnut something, I don't know. But on this one, we're going to do the darker one. So we'll actually turn the light side up facing us because this is how this is going to mount. So, you know, it'll be like that. So we're just going to face this towards us. We'll take this arm here. We slide the holes up here. You're going to need to press this end down so that you engage that spring, and just take your fingers here, slide it forward until that clicks into place. And then now that's on there. So then if you ever need to change these or take them down to clean them or whatever, you just reverse that. You press this down and you slide it off, and it comes off that easily. So I'm going to go ahead and put these together. We'll come back at the top of the ladder and we'll go start putting these arms on. So now we're going to install the arms on here. So I don't know if you can get up in here. You see each arm has 2 screws, and the way they're set up, you can't accidentally put them in the wrong place because like these 2 are too close together and they won't match up with the holes on the arm here. One other nice thing, these screws are pre-installed in the arms, so you really just have to hold them up there and screw them into place. So let's go ahead and do that. Now these have a pretty set stopping point, and once you get there you can give it an extra little crank, but it's not going to go too much further than that. And what I like to do is just set my ladder at one specific point. I'll put one on and then you can just spin this to get to the next one. It's easier than having to move around and get all different funky angles. So the next thing we're going to do is install the lighting fixture. As you can see, it's just 2 wires, which are again color-coded. Now, the only thing I don't like about this is, if you remember correctly, the two wires that we had up top were a black and a blue. The blue one is for the lighting fixture, like I mentioned, if you want to wire these separately. And if you come up here, if you see, these are our 2 wires that we're going to plug in, and the power one is blue. So you have a blue and a white, so it corresponds with those up top. Now, if you look down here again, they went with black and white. I don't know why they did that. It just seems like it would make more sense to do blue all the way through. But anyway, we're going to go black to blue and white to white. All right. So these just simply snap together. There's a couple wings on here and there's corresponding notches. So this will only go together one way. And it just snaps in there. The white one snaps in there. This light fixture is pretty light, so once you have those snapped in, you can let this go and it's fine. And then we've got 3 screws that will attach it to here. Now this can get kind of funky. As you see, there's a bunch of wires hanging out in here. We do need to kind of stuff those all up in here, along with our actual power in our neutral. And then again, we'll just take one screw at a time. This is where a magnetic screwdriver would really help. Unfortunately, that's not what I grabbed. But then once you get one started, it's just a matter of going around to the other two and putting them in. There we go. At this point, we can take this rubber band and little piece of plastic off of our fan control chain and just let that hang down. Moving on to the next step. So now we're going to install our light bulbs, and then we're going to put our dome cover over the lights. So pretty sure most people watching this channel know how to screw in a light bulb, but if you don't, you screw it in clockwise, go till it stops. You don't want to go any further or you'll break something. I don't understand why they do some things with these kits. So these two pieces here, and there's another piece underneath, are what actually hold our dome in place. Why they put those on there as opposed to just having it separate and having you put it all together, I don't know. But this just really easily unscrews, and it slides over your chain, and then this part comes off, and then this part, I believe actually, oh sorry, that does come off. So now if you notice on this, it's got this rubber O-ring that sticks up just a little bit. That's so that this is pressing up against your glass dome as opposed to having this metal directly pressing up against it while you're screwing this on and possibly causing damage. So while we're up here, we've got our glass dome. And you notice there's two holes in it. There's the one that's directly in the center. That's going to be for our light cable. And then the one that's offset a little bit, that's going to be for our fan cable. So we need to snake these through there and get this up in place. There's actually a slot in here that we need to put our chain through, just like that, for our fan control. And that's much nicer. And then we just reverse this. We're going to put this metal / rubber grommet on here. Not too tight, but snug enough to hold it into place. And then again with this, we've got two holes, one for each chain. Much easier to find on this. And then finally we take our nut there, our decorative nut, and screw it onto the bottom. So that's just about it, folks. If you want to stay up here 1 second, we've got one more little thing we have to do. We've got our little decorative knobs for our chains. Now, sometimes they'll make one longer than the other for light versus fan, but these look like they're exactly the same. So we're just going to snap one of these on each. Like so. And that's it, folks. The only thing left to do is turn the power back on and test this. So that's what we're going to go do right now. Okay, so a moment of truth. We turned our breaker back on. We've got power to the unit. Now all that's left is test it. I've already got my light switch turned back on. So as I said, the outer one, the shorter one is going to be your fan. The middle longer one is going to be your light. So we'll try the light first. And Tom said, let there be light. And there was light. Now the outer one. we've got a fan. So a couple other things that I didn't go over. There's actually a small switch up in here that's just up or down, and that controls which way the fan rotates. You can look at your operator's manual and I'll actually show you which way is which, as well as which way that will force the wind. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And you can see, then if we hit the switch over here, it turns everything off. So that's pretty much it, everyone. Hope it was informative, and good luck.